It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Howdy, howdy, ho, 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 ho. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? Thank you for joining us. We've got a full show interview today, which is something we haven't done in a while. But the conversation was so engrossing and riveting that we just kept right on going and the time just slipped right by. My special guest today is Melissa Krivachek. And Melissa is... We had this conversation during the interview, so I don't want to give it away. She explains exactly what it is that she does, but to give you an idea, she works with individuals and companies to help them improve their bottom line and to focus in on what their goals are and to actually achieve their goals. I know that sounds kind of vague, but she will explain it all in the interview, so please stay tuned for that. Before we get to Melissa, we've got a special music feature. This particular song is one of those songs that I just never get tired of listening to. It's also a song that my company, DJC Productions, is sponsoring and promoting. So if anybody is interested in licensing this particular song for anything, any kind of sync license, please get in touch with us. The song is called Heroin Girl by Nick Fowler. And it's one of those songs that it's not just a song, it's a journey. There's been a few songs like that for me personally. Led Zeppelin's Kashmir is one. Heart's Minstrel Wind is another one. It just sort of takes you through this whole emotional roller coaster and highs and lows. And at the end of the song, you feel almost tired, like you've gone on a great walk. And at the end, you're just like, wow, that was amazing. So that's how I feel about this song. So we're going to feature it from time to time on the show. Also, if you are a musician and you have a song that you want us to feature, check out our complete radio promotional package. Go to our website, Douglas Coleman Show, and just click on the link for complete radio promotional package. It's a great package. It's $49.99, and your track will play once a week for 4 weeks. You will also get a 15-minute interview on the show to promote whatever you want and whatever you want to talk about. And we will also include your photo and bio and links to your website and music on our website in our featured music artist section. Once your month is up, those 4 shows that your song played on will permanently archive on all of our online platforms like Spreaker with an R, TuneIn, Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music. We're on there as well. So it's a good deal. Check it out, douglascolemanshow.com, and click on the complete radio promotional package link. So here is Nick Fowler and Heroin Girl.
Searches for a fresh vein, another runaway, with vague dreams of the runway. As her umbrella collapses, she cries, or is it laughter? Because they feel the same. She's my heroin girl. Someone who doesn't love the world. She's my heroin girl. How can I love someone who doesn't love the world? She swears she'll change her ways, herself to get clean or die. She's the walking dead. She's dead. She's dead. She's or is it laughter? 'Cause they feel the same. She's my hell girl. How can I love someone who doesn't love her? She's my hell girl. How can I love someone who doesn't love her?
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Since the dawn of man, storytelling has held the power to rewrite history and shape our future. That power has too often been used to manipulate us and prey on our sons and daughters with impunity. Teenagers, lured by the siren's call of Hollywood dreams, are pitted against each other and told, if you won't do it, there's 1,000 more arriving tomorrow who will. The time has come to end this race to the bottom. Secrecy and silence no longer need to be the price for success. Technology, laws, and culture have culminated in a moment of opportunity where disruption is not just possible, but inevitable. Gratwick was established to be a turnkey studio capable of supporting local artists without luring them away. To remain accountable at all times, it will be owned and operated by the audience and the artists. Own a piece of a new, transparent Hollywood where you hold influence over what gets funded, who gets cast, and what charities we support. Visit Gratwick Productions on StartEngine.com today and take ownership over who has the power to entertain you.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join musicsubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. musicsubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Melissa Krivachek. Hey, Melissa, how are you?
I am awesome.
Before we start, can you just explain what it is you do? Because I read through your bio and I couldn't even come up with a title for what it is that you do.
Oh, that's funny. We create efficiency in business. So we literally go into either a business conversation or a personal conversation and figure out how individuals or businesses can become more efficient.
Okay. So what exactly would your job title be? What would you call yourself?
I would say a lifestyle consultant.
A lifestyle consultant. Okay. Well, when you sent your email in to be a guest on the show, we thought, okay, this is kind of interesting because you're not typically what we book for this show. You know, we book...
Indeed, I know that.
Yeah, we book actors and musicians and filmmakers and things like that. But I thought you might have an interesting story to tell. So give us an example of what you might do in a company. They would call you, presumably, and say, we need help, and you come and help them?
Either a company or an individual, right? So because your show is dedicated to actors and homemakers and things like that, we can take that route.
Okay.
For example, I would ask you for the next 7 days, I want you to write down what you're doing every 15 minutes. Now, this is going to do one of two things. It's going to tell me your values, and it's also going to tell me how efficient you are in your personal life. So let's say, for example, you tell me that you want to get fit. However, nothing indicates that you've even made an attempt to go get off your butt and get fit. So the same is true when I walk into somebody's home or office. If I see on the wall different things, could be video games, could be board games, could be pictures of families, could be whatever is surrounding you right now, that's what you value. But if you tell me that you value something else, your values and your actions don't align. So there has to be consequences for this. So one of the things that we do is literally look at why are you saying you want something and what belief system do you have ingrained in you to get a completely different result than you say you want. Does that make sense?
Just about. So let's say that they want their business to improve, which I know is kind of a general statement. Somebody may be doing something that they think is going to improve their business, but when in fact it doesn't, I suppose some of it is trial and error. I mean, to use your example about the fitness, obviously if somebody says, yeah, I want to get in shape, and all they do is sit on the couch and eat candy, they're not making any effort to achieve their goal. A lot of businesses are trying like hell to get into the market, to get more sales, to get more revenue, but they may be doing the wrong things, or they may be doing things that people aren't interested in doing. It's a little more complex.
Yeah, oftentimes. Yeah, they're oftentimes doing the right things in the wrong order, or they don't know what to do at all. So these are two completely different situations. The first situation is, I'm a new business owner. I don't know what to do. Therefore, my marketing is sort of like throw it at a wall and see if it sticks, right? The other is, hey, I've already run a business for X amount of years. I know what I'm doing, but for some reason, what I'm doing has sold out to equal the same results I've always gotten. So how do I increase the value in the marketplace? How do I increase the quality of clientele? How do I increase the bottom line? So all of these things come into play. The easiest way to do any of these things is to figure out, do you even have the right people in the right place inside of your organization? And that's probably the first place everyone needs to look at, is like, if you're a salesperson, right, and 70% of your time is dedicated to paperwork, you're not in sales. Or the organization needs to hire an assistant or somebody else that can do paperwork that's more qualified than the salesperson, because you're lacking sales because 70% of the time is spent on documents.
Okay. Do you have a success story example that you can give us? You don't have to name the name of the company, but just something that you did with them that greatly improved their business.
Yeah, so there was this gentleman, and he actually would send out his own email campaign. And so he would spend hours and hours and hours in the office writing email campaigns, and they would not convert. He'd be frustrated because he was missing his kids' soccer games and birthday parties and every other holiday, because he was trying to get his business to increase their profitability, not only margin-wise, but bottom line-wise. So I said to him, why don't you let us hire an email campaign management company? They're going to write the email campaigns. You're going to go home, and we'll see what happens. And we actually increased their revenue $1.8 million.
Wow.
And this person got to go home, got to be with their family. There was no more frustration about what to write in email campaigns. So a lot of times as a business owner or a salesperson or an entrepreneur, we like to do a lot of things that aren't within our realm of skill set. But for some reason, we think that we're talented at that, when in fact, there are other people that are more talented. So we're doing activities that aren't conducive to production or getting an actual result.
Okay, so some people have trouble with delegating responsibility.
Or even knowing what to delegate, right? So when I look at the sheet that says what you're doing every 15 minutes, and I see that you're writing an email campaign, but you're supposed to be head of operations. Like, there's no possible way you're being head of operations while writing an email campaign, because being in front of your computer, focusing on writing does not equal managing people.
Okay. All right. What about the entertainment industry? You said you worked with some people in the entertainment industry. What have you done for them?
So in entertainment, we worked with individuals that have made a large amount of their money doing Instagram giveaways. So for those guys, it's a matter of assessing more people, like accessing more people. And when they access more people, they are able to get in doors. So, for example, we've got an individual out in Las Vegas that we work very closely with. And for him, he gives away iPhones or cash. And either way, he generates a large population of followers. Now, the followers are great, but the followers are only great if they're buying something or you are getting them to pay attention to your music or your art or something like that, right? So we talk with him about, you're gaining all these followers. Now let's talk about how do we get in front of them more often than just giving them something. So you're giving them something to pay attention, but once you have their attention, we need to figure out how to keep it. So keeping a buyer's attention or a listener's attention or an artist's attention is incredibly important, because the quote that I always live by, it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
Well, that's
so
very
you need
true.
as many people to know you as possible.
I've heard that quote used considerably in the entertainment industry, and it's very true.
It is.
I think even more so. Well, I think it's true for any business, but entertainment business is really about who knows you, because everybody knows who Paul McCartney is, but, so what? But if he knows who you are, then that's a big deal.
Because you get tracks, you get record deals, you get just partnerships in general, right? I mean, like, you can take somebody that's nobody in the entertainment business and partner them up with somebody, and that somebody is going to propel that individual up the chain.
Right.
And then suddenly you have other people's attention.
What is it that this guy actually does, the one you were talking about that gives away phones and cash? I mean, what is he selling?
He's in the music industry, so he's not selling anything.
He's not selling anything.
Music.
He's selling his
producers.
He's selling his own music?
Indeed, yes.
Okay, all right.
So he goes on tours and stuff like that. The reason that's important, though, is because major brands pay attention, right? So in his particular case, he's a major influencer on social media. And so because he's a major influencer, he can partner with other brands that allow him to get more traction. So it's not just about getting attention to the people that already listen to him. It's getting attention to the people that aren't listening to him but are listening to other people in his genre of music.
Okay. I just had an interesting conversation last week with, it's actually the show that's up right now. It's the new show. And
okay.
He's a founder of a PR company in LA. And we were having the conversation about social media and about traditional media. And my argument has always been that the people, you can get to a point on social media, and then unless you get on TV, so to speak, like some kind of the Today Show, the Tonight Show, something, you don't get that push. Okay, it seems like it's difficult for people to start from ground zero on the internet. You can get to a point. But the traditional media seems to still have a lot more power. Now, I've been disagreed with on this point, but what are your thoughts?
I think both have different powers, completely different powers, right? So this is going to depend on who your market is. If your market is millennials, is tech-savvy individuals, then, yeah, you should use the power of social media. If your genre of music or your production is geared towards a business owner or somebody that has, lived with the belief system that watching the news is going to help them, then you need to be on the Today Show and all of the other shows that are on television. Now, those shows are a lot more challenging to get on because I've been on them. So, I don't think it takes a PR company to get on those shows because I've never hired a PR company. But I think you have to define, who is your target market and how are you going to go about reaching them and what's that going to cost you in terms of investment, right? So both of them have their own purposes, but both purposes are completely different.
Well, I'm using that conversation that I had with him also in reference to my show. Because we've been doing this for 5 years now, and we started at 0. We got up to a pretty good following, but now we've sort of plateaued. And I haven't figured out yet how to kick it up to the next level. The people that I compare myself to have all been on television, traditional television, who actually were started out there, then they moved to the internet. So I think that's a much easier transition because people know who you are already. And I'm just having a difficult time getting up to the next level. So I was asking him, what do you think I should do? And so I'll ask you the same question.
Well, I think you need to look at what you've already done. So what did you do that worked and what did you do that didn't work?
Okay, I'll have to think about that. But it generally... Okay, the guest who you have on has a lot to do with it. If they have a huge following, you'll get a huge listener count for that particular guest.
Indeed.
Okay, people that nobody's ever heard of, their mother and their kids listen to them, and maybe that's it. We were on 16 different terrestrial radio stations for about 2 years. And finally I gave up on it because my attitude is that nobody listens to FM radio anymore. It's like a dinosaur. Everybody listens through their phone, and they'll pick what they want when they want. Nobody's going to tune in at 7 p.m. Eastern time, on a specific station to listen to a radio show. I think that, 30, 40, 50 years ago, yeah, that was your only choice. Now there's so many more choices. So we stopped doing that. We stopped being on terrestrial radio because I didn't think it was working.
So that's what doesn't work. What do you know that does work? How did you get the following that you currently have?
I think just time and effort.
5 years is a long time. Mm-hmm.
5 years we've been doing this. And we've always had our sort of regular base of followers. We've moved a couple of times. I was originally on a radio station in Florida, live, doing this show, and then that was a disaster. So we went for a pre-recorded format and gradually started to increase our online presence. We started with one, then we went to another one, There's hundreds of platforms for podcasts.
There is, yeah.
So we found one that will feed the show to all these other ones. And we thought, well, that's good. Then we only have to upload once. Having a producer and somebody to handle the emails and that has been great. So John certainly works. And we've had no trouble attracting guests. We got more guests. I've got a folder with about 500 emails in it from the last 3 months of people wanting to be on the show, okay? And we go through everyone and we read and, he sorts out the ones that he knows I won't want. And then the ones that he think might be a possibility, he forwards to me. And I read it, and then then he'll book them. So that's been very successful, attracting guests. But now we're stuck on the trying to get more listeners. That's our next objective. And I'm not sure what else to do. We've tried PR people. I've paid people to promote the show. That didn't work at all. We got absolutely nothing.
I don't think that ever works, honestly. Like, I've looked at the numbers because I've considered, hiring PR companies as well. And, they just, statistically, they have nothing to gauge against, right? They have the numbers that you come in with, and then they have the numbers that they want to see you have, but there's no, consequence if they don't hit those numbers. Oh, sorry, we spent your money trying to get you numbers, but we didn't get them.
And
so
that's it.
The cost of business.
Yeah.
No, that's not the cost of business. My expectation was that you were delivering a value to me, and I didn't get the value, but you got my money. That's not a win.
No, definitely not. And we've gone that route. The other thing we tried that didn't work at all were Facebook ads.
Yeah, I disagree on the Facebook ads too. I personally don't even have Facebook at all anymore, but that was just a personal decision that I made. I think Facebook ads are, one, overpriced, and two, yes, you can select the target, and you can be incredibly specific about the target based on all of Facebook's algorithms, but it's podcasts. So people aren't going to Facebook to listen to a podcast. They're going to Facebook to waste time.
True.
Browse around, waste whatever amount of money that they're going to waste shopping and all this other stuff, right? So I think probably the biggest suggestion I would have is to do retargeting. So figure out where your guests currently are and retarget wherever they do you know the demographics and psychographics of your audience?
Generally, yeah. Most of our audience is between 30 and 70 years old, more male than female, and pretty much limited to the 5 English-speaking countries of the world.
Okay. What's their income? What's their job title? Where do they hang out? What do they do in their free time? Like, do you know any of that?
No, not specifically.
That is probably the problem right there. So you have the psychographics down, but you don't, or you have the demographics, but you don't have the psychographics.
How do you get the psychographics?
So, well, based on who's leaving you feedback on iTunes or any other platform that you're requesting reviews, and then you've known the audience for 5 years, so you sort of have an idea who's listening and who's not, right? So I know that I know exactly what my audience is, and I've sort of pinpointed, like, this is perfect for me. Now where do I find these people? You have to do the same thing. Okay, these people live this kind of lifestyle, they read this kind of book, or they listen to this kind of television show, or they do this in their free time. Where do those people hang out? I mean, you're not going to try to find a movie star at a church, right? You're going to find a movie star at probably a play. So you have to know where to go to find the people that you're looking for. And it sounds like you know what platforms don't work, but I would imagine those platforms don't work because that's not your demographic.
Okay, I can go along with that. Well, all right, that's good information, because then, thank you, because then we can kind of concentrate on trying to figure out a little bit more about who's listening to the show.
And I mean, 30 to 70 is fairly large group of people. I would imagine that you can contain it a little bit more, because in those numbers, right, you've got millennials, you've got Gen Xers, you've got
baby boomers.
Yeah, like, this is like a very wide scope of people, and they listen to completely different things. They're like, even in listening to the show, right, they're listening for completely different things. And maybe, like, there needs to be a much stricter way to interview. And what I mean is, like, maybe you need to narrow down the scope of who you're interviewing and why.
Well, okay, that's possible, except I like to keep it broad, because then that just brings in different people. The listeners come with the guest many times. So if I have somebody on who's, 18 or 19 years old, his friends and followers will listen to the show. If I have somebody on who's 75, the people that know who that person is, they'll listen to the show. That's probably why my demographic is so wide, because we have all of these different kinds of people. I hate to start excluding people based on their age or their interests particularly. Well, exclusion drives up numbers. That's the thing. It does.
I mean, the more exclusive you are, like, and I think you know this based on prior business experience, right? So a certain type of people watch CNN. I don't. But, I mean, people that have been in business and love analytics and love drama definitely watch CNN. I would rather get my news via some form of the phone, like Google or whatever. And I'm not a big news watcher to begin with, but the broad scope equals the vast variation in how people get their news or their social commentary, or even keep in touch with people. So as a millennial, like, most people prefer text. I'd imagine your generation prefers phone call. The generation below me prefers email. Like, so it's a disconnected, connected society.
I'm listening to everything you're saying, because it does make sense. My only hesitation with it is just limiting the audience. Well, okay, we're not going to book any more 18-year-olds. I don't want to do that.
So if you don't limit the audience, Douglas, like, what if you changed the way you interviewed, right? So I can tell you from my show, so my show's a Millionaire's Hot Seat. I've been doing it for 4 years. I literally have a set of 10 questions. We ask the same 10 questions, 30 minutes, that's it. It's very regimented. I know that you don't do that. It's just an open conversation, which is fantastic because you get a lot more information, but it's also very broad. So instead of changing the audience, maybe change the show format. Both of those are options, and both of those can be toyed with to see which one works best, or maybe it's a tweak of a little bit more structure inside of the show and a little less broad of an audience.
The person that I kind of admire in this business that I tried to model my show after was Dick Cavett. Now, I know he's of a different generation, but his show was probably the best one of that kind of a talk show for me, because it was just an open conversation. And he's definitely got a following of people my age. I don't like written questions. I never have.
I know you don't, and I don't either. So
You know?
I'm with you on that. I like the fact that you and I are just chatting, and we'll see where it goes. Like,
Yeah.
even in looking in the producer's notes today before I came on the show, I was like, "There's no note saying what we're talking about. We're talking about whatever comes up," and that's awesome because there are going to be guests that love structure, and then there are guests that just don't like structure, and either both of them are fine. But a talk show is a talk show because it's a conversation.
Exactly. And I've never had anybody complain, that my show wasn't formatted enough or I didn't ask them questions that they wanted. If they're here for a specific reason, like they're plugging a book, or a song or a movie, which is usually why most of them are here, we do talk about what it is that they're plugging. But all the peripheral conversation around it could be about the industry in general. It could be about something in their personal life they want to talk about. I leave it up to them. I'm like the timekeeper and the nudger. If there's a lull, I nudge the conversation. And then I just keep an eye on the clock so we don't run over. That's basically all I do. I feel like that's my job. And I know we went a little...
So what is the purpose of your show then? Like, for you, why do you wake up to do this show?
Oh, because I love it. I love talking to the different people. I think I've got a good voice for radio. I think it comes very natural for me. And it's something that I've always wanted to do, that now with the technological opportunities that the internet affords, I can do it. And, I'd like to see the show get more successful. If it doesn't, oh well. It's not the end of the world. But the primary reason that I do it is because I love to do it. And I've had some great guests over the last 5 years, some real interesting people that had I not had the show, I would have never had the opportunity to speak to.
Right. So then what do you want your audience to take away from these conversations?
That sort of feeling of, I just went away for 40 minutes or 50 minutes somewhere else. Like they were just a fly on the wall listening to an interesting conversation between two people. And for that 50 minutes, they were gone. They were engrossed in that conversation. That's how I feel. If I see somebody being interviewed, particularly on Dick Cavett, I am in there for that 50 minutes, and I'm just totally tuned out to everything else that's happening. It's like when you go see a movie. If you see a very engrossing movie, for that 2 hours, you're in that movie. Nothing else matters. That's what I'm trying to achieve with the show, is that sense of escape. I'm not trying to teach anybody anything. I'm not an encyclopedia type show with vast amounts of information. I'm entertainment. That's what I'm trying to achieve.
I think you're trying to take people out of their everyday, busy, monotonous lives and show them that being present in a moment can help you recalibrate and restructure the way that you think about the next moment. So when the show is over, I get to walk away with the opportunity to feel better about my life or to feel better about the next decision that I make. So by them just escaping for 40 or 50 minutes, they are basically recalibrating themselves energetically.
Sure, it's kind of like meditation in a sense.
Yes, except it's entertainment.
Except it's entertainment, right. You're actually listening to something rather than trying to not listen to anything. But the end result is pretty much the same. After a 20-minute meditation, people feel invigorated and ready to go again. And that's if I can give people that sort of feeling at the end of my show, then I've succeeded.
Indeed. And I think the biggest way to figure that out, right, is to look at the reviews or to ask people, how did you feel after the show? What can I do better that you would tell your friends about me or anybody that you know? And that's just the thing, is like exposure comes down to how many people are talking about you. So you want to make sure that people are talking about you and that you're doing right to your listeners, but more importantly, right to yourself. And it sounds like you've got both of those things going for you. So that's awesome.
The other thing that I definitely have stayed away from is politics, because number one, this country is like split in half and everybody's at each other's throats. And there's a bazillion angry politics shows on. And that's just one area that I don't want to get into. It's ironic that we're talking about that today. Yeah, on impeachment day. Happy impeachment day, and it's...
Right.
But I mean, the whole thing nauseates me, from both sides, basically. I'm not taking one side or the other. That's just one area I don't want to go. I have had a couple of close calls with people who wanted to get into it, but, I want to stay neutral, because that is something that I feel strong about, is that the media is just way too biased. And, depending on which opinion you want, you just tune into either Fox or MSNBC or whatever. And I don't want to be that. If I'm going to do that, I'd rather be like Walter Cronkite, or somebody back in the old days, who just delivers the news and leaves it up to you to formulate your own opinions.
Which everyone should formulate their own opinions.
Of course.
That's something great. But I love that you have very standard values. So in my business, the number one value is integrity. Number two is fun. So we're always looking for entertaining, fun ways to get more individuals to know us. And I think you're probably striving for the same thing, just taking a little bit of a different approach. So by leaving politics out of it, it allows people to just come in, escape, and not have that feeling of more stress and more anxiety and more decision making to be had. And I was just on the radio the other day, and the very first question, and I'm probably never going to forget this and probably not stop talking about it, is the guy starts off with, "What do you think of Barack Obama's statement?" And I was like, "Well, I don't even know what the statement is." And he mentioned the statement, and it was about are women better leaders than men? Unequivocally better leaders than men. And I literally said, well, my view basically is, one, I don't talk about politics, but two, I think that women are great leaders and men are great leaders, and they're both great leaders for completely different reasons, right? I mean, women lead great households and men lead great companies. In fact, most companies are owned by men but run by women. So we can't say that both sexes aren't great leaders. They are, but they're totally different in their leadership capabilities and who they're leading.
Well, exactly. I agree with you 100%. I don't think gender particularly it doesn't matter. There's been great leaders who are women. There's been lousy ones. There's been great men. There's been lousy ones. It all depends on the individual.
Both of them depends on how you communicate, right? So your level of communication is through this show. And people appreciate that about you. And so my communication might be differently. It might be through a book, it might be through radio, it might be through television, or all three. The level of communication of leadership comes down to the strategy of marketability. So the market demands you to be in one arena, and so you have to step into that arena with confidence. So it doesn't matter if you're female or male or what age you are. It matters how you show up.
Well, that's exactly it. And see, now we're getting into politics, but I'll just say this, that, this whole idea of identity politics, I despise, because it isn't, like you said, it's not about your gender. It's not about your race. It's not about your religion. People have the right to think however they want to think and not be pigeonholed into a thought bubble simply because of their gender or their race or their sexual orientation. And I think that's a very dangerous road that some of the radical left are trying to push. We are a free society, and free societies, people should be judged. What was it Martin Luther King said? Not by the color of your skin, but by the content of your character. That sums it up. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. So all of that is just irritating me, but
But I mean, I'm talking about like not just from a political standpoint. Politics is politics. I don't really care about that. But like in business as well, in commercial radio, in all different types of work. Like we have the same thing. It's not who's running the company; it's how well they're running the company. It's not like who's running the company; it's how they show up. Like
Right. Exactly.
you show up in a way that delivers a message that takes people away from their everyday life, so that they can relax, right? And they can talk about entertainment, and they can be entertained. I do something, but I do it completely differently. I'm trying to figure out how to fix efficiencies in business systems so that people can become happier, so that they can go to bed and actually sleep, so that they can make more money and actually be happy about the quality of clientele that they're attracting.
How long have you been doing this?
12 years.
And how did you get started? I mean, were you doing something else before this?
I was, yes. So I grew up in a town of 300 people in Iowa, so that's like the total of a restaurant. And so my dad always would have me go with him to put windshields into semis. And there was a Saturday, I was 16, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm going to get out. So I drove 30 minutes north, and I said, I'm going to work at Walmart. I did, grew up the ladder, had a fantastic mentor. His name's Rick Derlinger. He still works for the Walmart Corporation today. And I worked for them for 4 years. Eventually, I got fired for doing the right thing, which was out of my own integrity. That's fine. But it was 2008 when I got fired. So as you can imagine, I was 19. I was naive. I had no idea. I also had no idea about running a business, but I said I could do it. So I heard my dad say, my grandpa didn't do it. I was able to do it. You're not going to be able to do it, so don't try. And when someone tells me that I cannot do something, consider it done.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I did, and like I can say my family has grown up in this area, township, rural residents for 10 generations or 200 years, and not one single one of them has succeeded at becoming an entrepreneur. I was the first, and now I'm the first of 5 of us who are successful, and that chain was broken this generation. So it started with me, and then it went to my brother, and then my dad eventually joined my brother, and my uncle, one owns the local grocery store, and the other one owns a broom sweeping company. So if it wasn't for me just saying, like, look, we're not going to tolerate this in our generation anymore, we're going to do something different, and one of us has to say, like, we're going to start a business, and we're going to actually commit to whatever it takes to run this business, then that's what we're going to do. And so now I am incredibly much more passionate about what I'm doing because I was able to break this generational chain. And I think that's the thing that drives me. It's not all the awards and accolades I've won. I've gotten plenty of those. But it was the fact that I didn't know how to run a computer and I had to figure it out. I didn't know about consulting and I had to figure it out. I did not know what I was even going to be teaching and I had to figure it out. And so I tell people, don't do this, even though I did. Like, I watched YouTube and regurgitated what you didn't have time to learn. Today, because I've worked in so many businesses and I've worked with so many individuals, I know what they need and none of it's regurgitated. So if you're going to start something, you should actually know something about it and know that whatever you think it's going to take in terms of work or money or effort, we'll just multiply that a lot. And that's what you're going to end up investing.
Well, and as much money as time as well, right?
Oh, it's time, it's effort, it's energy, it's money, it's time, effort, and energy, way more than money. Because I didn't come from money, so I started with nothing. And it was kind of laughable because when I moved into a very nice neighborhood, after 3.5 years of really just struggling to figure out how to make it work, my sister saw the house and she was like, oh, if I lived here, I'd make as much money as you do too. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I literally just spent 3.5 years, like, no car, no sex, no dates, no going anywhere, no nothing, in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. And now you're going to tell me, like, if you lived here, you'd make money? I don't think so. Like, you don't understand the level of sacrifice and commitment. And that is something I'm incredibly passionate about, is teaching people, like, when you are committed to something and it's it's the level of commitment, Douglas, that you have for the show. Like, you're gonna do things, and you're gonna figure it out no matter how long it takes. But you're also gonna know when to give up and walk away. And so you've mentioned some of the things that you've sort of given up and walking away from, and I've had many of those experiences where not everything works, and not everything is going to work, and that's fine. But know what works and what doesn't, and know who you are as an individual, and don't give up on that, because that's the most important thing that you're selling.
Well, that's true. And, the other thing I don't want to do is to sell out the show simply to make it successful. I did,
Right.
A lot of musicians do that. And, I am a musician as well. That's kind of what I started out doing many years ago. But with the show, because if it, disappears tomorrow, it'll be sad. But all the shows are there. They'll be there forever. The archives are there. People can listen to all what we've done for the past 5 years. I don't want to radically change it simply to try to sell it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
I'm going to keep it the way that I'm comfortable doing it, the way I love doing it. I can tweak things here and there to try to improve it and, get it out there and get it seen by more people. And just keep going. It just takes time. There's not a lot of money invested. So the stuff I had already for music in terms of the editing software and the studio and everything. So that was already there. So all I got to do is sit down and talk to somebody. That's easy. I can do that, and I love to do that.
Absolutely, and that's the thing is you know that, and you're comfortable with that. The only thing I would counter that with is comfort as a casket from time to time. So just be wary of that. There are some things that need to die, and so you just have to let them die. Now, this show is not one of those things, but some of the marketing tactics might be, or it depends on a lot of different factors. But there are definitely some things within the organization, yours, mine, or anybody else's, that there's a time for death, and then at that point you just say, like, all right, I've given it everything I got, like, it's time to move on. And that was the thing I was describing to you earlier. It's like, maybe you tweak the show, or maybe you tweak the audience, or maybe you tweak a little bit of both.
Well, yeah. My other thing is just to keep trying to find more interesting guests, because we're getting so many that I can afford to just sort of weed out. I have certain ones that I won't put on. And then every once in a while, and we're working more with PR people because they have access to the people that are more famous, and building relationships with them. We've got a real good relationship with one of the PR people for the Discovery Channel. So we've done 2 interviews with Discovery Channel stars, which is great.
I heard the last one. That one was a fantastic interview.
With Casey?
Yes.
Yeah, Man versus Bear. I haven't even seen the show yet, but it sounds like a riot.
Oh.
Yeah. Have you watched it?
I have. Yes, I got recommended that before we went out to the wilderness of Minnesota.
Oh.
So I watched a few episodes because I was like, I guess I need to know what to do.
It sounds wild. I mean, it just sounds great.
It's extremely wild.
Yeah. That's on my short list. Gotta watch it.
Watch the show.
But Casey was a great guy. We had a nice interview, and so we're getting more guests from places like that, which is really what I want. I gotta cut this off, and I'm sorry that I took so much of your time talking about me.
It's all good.
I don't normally do that. Are you plugging anything at this moment that you want to get out before we wrap this up?
I'm good. You can find me at melissakrivachek.com or aboutfaceinc.com.
Okay, spell your name for people.
MELISSAKRIV as in Victor ACHEK.com.
All right, super. Thank you so much for coming on. This was a very fun conversation, and I appreciate your advice. Best of luck with everything you're doing, and I hope.
Thank you.
I hope to see your name around. I would love to have you back sometime in 6 months, 8 months, something like that. Would you be interested in coming back on? We can give each other.
I would love that, Douglas.
Give each other progress reports. Yeah.
We should be doing that before 6 to 8 months. So we will continue to build a relationship, and then we'll just hang out in 6 to 8 months.
Oh, that sounds great. Okay. That does sound great. All right, Melissa, take care.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
When they'll tell you you've got to turn